Hey, welcome back to another episode of the People of Packaging podcast. Hey, I'm your host, Adam Peak. You can find me on TikTok at Packaging Pastor. You can also find me on LinkedIn at Adam Peak. Please go and like and subscribe and follow this podcast. It would mean a lot. Also, it would mean so much if you would support our sponsors. Shout out to SpecRite. They have been a ride or die for a while. They want you to imagine a world without waste. Listen, they are changing the game. You're going to be faced with EPR regulations. You're faced with price pressure. All of the things. If you don't know your data, if you don't know your specs, then you're just going to end up guessing, and you're going to end up wasting a bunch of money. You're going to end up wasting a bunch of material. The most sustainable thing that you can do is get to know your product specifications, your packaging specs. Go to specrite.com/PKG, and you already know the link is in the show notes. Also, Supply Caddy is our newest sponsor. Supply Caddy is a leading global manufacturer and supplier of packaging and disposables for the food service industry. With headquarters in Miami, Florida, and manufacturing facilities in North America and Europe, Supply Caddy is able to provide high-quality, affordable products for restaurants, chains, and food service brands globally. For more information, go to supplycaddy.com. And you already know that. It's in the show notes. So make sure you support SpecRite, reach out to them. The team over there is incredible, as is the team at Supply Caddy. Make sure you reach out to them also. Okay, let's get to our latest interview right now. All right, so I am joined today here by my new friend, fellow podcast host, Jonathan Cage. Jonathan is the Director of Business Development at ICpG. I'm excited to find out what that stands for. We have so many abbreviations and acronyms in the packaging industry.
Right.
Now I get another one. He is also the, is it co-host or host of the Crazy About Packaging podcast?
Co-host, yeah.
Co-host.
Three of us on it, yes.
You have three. You're I was going to go with a Trinitarian. Like, are you the Father, the Son, or the? But it's fine. We won't go.
There's There's three of us that kind of on there, but
it's a triumvirate.
It is. It's the trifecta. We're really passionate about packaging, as so many people are, and we developed we started the podcast, and now going into our fifth episode, and we sort of coined it, and we're like, okay, well, how does it define us? And we're like, like a lot of people out there, we're just crazy about packaging. So we established the Cat Pack.
Okay. Well, let's talk about, that's exciting. And likewise, I mean, I've fallen in love with this industry. So, yes. But how did you get here? So let's just take some moment to get to know who is, I'm actually thinking, is there I believe there's a Street Fighter character named Johnny Cage.
Yeah, scorpion move.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah, I died a horrible death.
With it, but
yes, yeah. People look at my life, they're like, Johnny Cage? I'm like, Johnny Cage.
Johnny Cage.
That's it.
Has just made my whole morning. I get to go tell people the rest of the day. I got to have a sit down with Johnny Cage. It was great.
You go. Perfect. So it's interesting, Adam. I actually have spent the majority, I'm originally from the southwest of England. I came over to America, and truly one of the best moves I've made in my life. I just absolutely love being in this country. And it's truly defined, as for me, as a land of opportunity. It's been terrific. So after going through university, I actually interviewed with a packaging company, and I had no idea about packaging, and I was actually meeting with the division president, and just walking through, I absolutely fell in love with it. And it was a blown film operation, huge operation. And I just, they were doing converting, they were doing printing, and I was like, wow, I'm just absolutely fascinated. So one thing led to another, and they hired me in, lucky for me. And that sort of started my career in packaging. So I was in, pretty much linear low density, medium density films, etc., and really got my feet wet on the film side. then kind of moved into more barrier film applications for a few years. And then after being in that for, gosh, I think probably about 5 or 6 years, I then actually came over to rigid packaging for thermoformed applications for foam fill seal and thermoforming. And, that's what I've really been focused on for the last, I won't actually say how many years, but many years, right? So, and so now and then I actually got a really fantastic education in rigid materials, and again, that's where my passion is, which has now led to where I am today, and my passion for sustainability, and continuing to develop new products, etc., and be part of the industry.
That's awesome. Which school did you go study at?
So I went to Ball State initially,
Okay.
and in Indiana. I was, right fresh off the boat, and I'm like, okay, what do you do now? And so I had to sort of search around and figure out, what university would fit. And they had a great business school, and so I went there, and then I ended up getting my MBA in St. Louis
Oh, okay.
several years later.
Gotcha.
Uh, and I've had the opportunity to move around with a couple of different packaging companies around the States. Lived in Chicago for a while, St. Louis, and now here in North Carolina.
Got it. Got it. That's great. Were you at, well, I'm trying to think back to, was it Bonzi Wells who played basketball at Ball State? I want to say
Oh, could have been. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
mid
So
90s, maybe. I don't know.
right.
Anyway,
Yeah, they were great basketball school for sure.
yeah, you you should be if your name is Ball State. You would hope that.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Good.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. So now you're at, and by the way, anyone can just go onto your LinkedIn page, Mr. Cage, and find out how long you've worked at these companies. So you don't have to keep it a
Well,
secret. We all
Neanderthal
have the
man, and then the dinosaur, and then Jonathan in packaging.
we all have the internet these days.
That's it.
I love it. So
Yeah.
so you spent, is it safe to say you've spent then your whole career working in some type of plastics around the packaging space? Is that
It
accurate,
is.
from film to barrier to rigid? Okay.
That's exactly
Um,
right.
and have you been able to work then in various types of, or with various types of industries? Food, bev, pharmaceutical, medical device, all of them?
Yes. Actually, my primary focus has always been in food packaging. Done a fair amount in medical as well. I also branched off a couple of times, and I went into automotive, heavy truck transportation, etc., and got exposure to that when I was, with another company in the Midwest. So, but it really focused in the packaging area, and quite a range of applications from, form fill seal, thermoforming, hot fill, deposit fill, seal, etc., and working a lot on the development side of packaging, um,
Got it.
depending on whatever the application needs were.
So what does ICpG stand for? I mentioned that earlier.
So yeah, so ICpG is our Impact Consumer Products Group, and it's a division of Impact Plastics. Our headquarters are up in Putnam, Connecticut, and we've sort of branched off, and we've got this new division that's located down in Hamlet, where we do everything from monolayer to multi-layer high barrier co-extrusions. And then we've also developed our new XPP material, which is part of our sustainability focus, actually for a replacement for polystyrene. So there's a whole story there, Adam, when you're ready for that one.
No,
It's
let's talk
pretty
about it.
interesting. Sure, sure.
So I just did I mentioned to you I was in St. Louis, and I was at, everyone told me, well, I heard mixed reviews on Emo's Pizza, right? So my Uber driver tells me, my
You either love it or you don't.
my Uber driver says, because I asked, anytime I go to a new city I've never been to before, I'm like, hey, where should I go eat? Like, what's the
Hmm.
spot that if I come here, what's the
Right.
style of food that when I go back, if I'm like, I was in St. Louis and someone else is there, they're gonna say, oh, did you go to? And he said, Emo's Pizza. So put me into the, like, love. I thought the pizza was delicious. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I know other people might disagree, but you can fight about that later. Fight about it in the comments if you want to.
There we
Uh,
go.
so, but I get my drink, right? And it's in a polystyrene cup.
Yeah.
And I made a TikTok video about it and I put it on LinkedIn as well. And it said, like, basically, under the exact perfect conditions, this polystyrene cup will biodegrade in 4 years. And I was like, but what can I mean, and it didn't really it gave some obscure ASTM number and if it does this, and I'm like, can you just tell me to put this in the trash? Because it was all green and it looked
Hmm.
like recycling, right? So I'm like, how many
Hmm.
people are not me who are just gonna go dump this in their cycle bin? And now, so I have a lot of questions around polystyrene
Okay.
and so we can let's go hang out there. This could be a really fun
Sure,
spot to
sure. No,
see,
it's yeah. So
you
polystyrene has been amazing material. It's been around for many years. I actually worked on the initial development of the little creamer cups,
yeah.
and all the way through to where we are today on polystyrene. And that goes back many years. Polystyrene really came under fire more recently because of the monomer issue, but also Prop 60 it became an issue under Prop 65. So about 15 years ago, a lot of the big CPGs, brand owners, have been looking to get out of styrene. It's a smaller segment than say polypropylene, definitely, compared to polyester and etc. So it's not really recycled. It hasn't got the collection streams in place to collect it. But again, a phenomenal material that has done extremely well for many, many years. I mean, you can extrude it in monolayer or in multi-layer configurations, in cups, etc. So it's been a real workhorse, done great. Now it's come under fire. A lot of the challenge with polystyrene is because it's got such tremendous properties, how do you replace it? So as I mentioned, about 15 years ago, we had started a journey on looking to try and replace polystyrene on form fill seal lines. So if you think about form fill seal, you've got yogurt pots, you've got various other applications, creamers, etc. And there's a lot of styrene that's out there, but these machines were specifically built to run polystyrene. Now, trying to find a replacement for polystyrene, whether it's polyester or polypropylene, has been a monumental challenge. About 4 years ago, we partnered with one of our key resin suppliers, and we developed the ICpG solution. And actually, it started off kind of like the Kodak and the 3M, we kind of made a few mistakes along the way. Our engineers bring out some samples that we were running on production trials, and we scored across this one sheet, and it snapped cleanly right down the line. And that never happens with polypropylene. It's a super tough material. It's got flexibility, etc. So this was an aha moment. In fact, we believe that, looking out the window from the conference room, we saw the unicorns trotting across the parking lot. We're like, wow, did you see that? So yeah, that was our unicorn. Anyway, so we found this unicorn. So 4 years ago, we really started, focusing on replacing polystyrene and try and replicate those properties with a new material. And we are material agnostic, so we looked at all different materials, and we narrowed it down to this specific grade of polypropylene, and that combined with our conversion process enabled us to control a lot of the properties of polypropylene and mimic those of polystyrene, to the point now we have trials going on globally, where brand owners really are engaged in looking at this material as more of a sustainable replacement for polystyrene.
Got it. And I hope, I mean, obviously we have a large demographic of packaging folks that listen to this podcast. It's about
Mm-hmm.
packaging. If you're a random person, it's because you're either part of my family, hi mom, or you just stumbled upon this, or they know you. But
Yeah.
I have been telling anyone who will listen to me the complexity around packaging and
Mm-hmm.
sustainability. And you just detailed something that very, very, very few people will understand, which is you can't just sub out a material for
No,
another material. There are that is I think you said it's a monumental task
it
in many
is.
cases. So you can't just switch, you can't just, flick on some legislation and say, "Okay, now we're gonna move from polystyrene to polypropylene." It's like,
Yeah.
well, we have equipment, we have machines, we have to consider the life cycle, we have to consider the barrier properties. Is it even gonna work? I mean, there's so much to it, and especially with something like food or
Yes.
beverage, it's like, it doesn't do us any good to change the material, but degrade the quality of the food to a point where the food is now being tossed. It's like,
Yes.
so I just I don't know, I'm guessing, is that an area that you spend a lot of time working with these CPG companies on, is understanding what the totality of the totality of sustainability looks like for
Mhm.
them and walking them through these things?
I do, and that's really, I've been privileged, I feel, to have had all of this experience over the years. So I'm very familiar with the applications, the process, and the material requirements. And you're exactly right. If it was that easy to create a solution, both financially or for sustainability, great, that would be perfect. But it's not. It is extremely challenging. And just like you laid out, Adam, you have to consider the performance properties, the application requirements. What are the shelf life? What's the crush? How does it perform through various converting processes as well? And this can apply not only to rigid, but all sorts of other packaging as well. And what we have tried to do is simplify. Our mantra is really, how do we start to simplify some of these extremely complex structures so that they get captured, so we can get curbside recycling and close that gap and eventually, create circularity. But it is, like I had mentioned on this particular project, it started 15 years ago,
Right.
and it's not only, it's like, yeah, polypropylene had been used as a potential replacement, but you had to add other components, like fillers or additives or compounds, whereas this solution has none of that. The
Hmm.
thing is that then that changes how it gets recycled, because now you've got other content in that material. And the cool thing about this, about polypropylene, is it's lightweight as well. So you get a yield advantage over other materials. That means less trucks on the road. That's better utilization of the material itself. But again, extremely complex, a lot of testing. I would say average to try and replace a material for a brand owner is probably somewhere in the range of 3 years.
That
It's a heck of a path.
that would be at best, right? I mean, it
Yeah,
seems like
three to
that's
five. Yeah, I mean, we're living it now, and we're going in. We're on year 4, going into year 5, and it is very, very complex, from regulations, migration, materials, capital investment to modify equipment, the whole 9 yards. So there's a lot that goes into it.
I don't know where this next question is gonna go, but I'm gonna ask it. So
Okay.
you are you're familiar, you're from, you said southwest of the UK, correct?
Yes.
Where exactly did you grow up?
Bath. I was born and raised in Bath on the southwest, and then moved around. Was living in Germany for a year or two, and then France and Brussels
Okay.
before coming to the States.
Oh, wow, okay. Um, you still say process, which is great. I'm glad. Hold on to aluminum, hold on to process and
Vitamins, yeah,
Q and yeah,
right,
all of them. Just
yeah,
keep
yeah.
hold on to those and treasure them
There
because
we go.
so you're as I look at the EU and I see what's happening with
Hmm.
extended producer responsibility over there
Yes.
and some of the clunkiness that the rollout has been, particularly in areas like
Hmm.
France, then
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. And now I'm seeing, Colorado, Maine,
Right.
Oregon, California, these there's probably forgot one, but you see EPR starting to roll out here in the United States.
Hmm.
What are you doing now with these brands, these CPG brands, to help educate and get them prepared for that, while also knowing that there's a 3 to 5 year timeline to get changes made,
Mhm.
but we don't know what the rules are gonna be because it's so fluid in 3 to 5 years. What are those conversations like with these CPG companies?
Well, they're interesting and they're challenging because there's expectations that are being set that are not necessarily reality. I feel, if you take PCR and for instance, an incorporation of PCR into packaging, well, that's great to have those those systems in place, but it takes collaboration between packaging producers, resin suppliers, the brand owners, the consumers, etc., to try and get your arms around EPR. It's very complex, and I think that education is so critical, um, to understand what all of those requirements, because right now, there's a tremendous amount of energy that's being put into sustainability and trying to figure out how we can, get to circularity. Does that, involve EPR? Yes, of course. It also, you need to take into consideration designing for recyclability, so many other factors that come into play. People don't really recognize, again, going back to the 15-year journey, that to replace a material, to come up with a new material, whether it's compostable, biodegradable, comes from Mother Earth, um, that is complex. That is not an easy solution. So it does take time. It takes going through the regulations, doing all of the testing, and providing the brand owners with all of the background and everything, all the information that they need to be able to try and determine how they're going to move forward with certain materials, and of course how that plays into EPR.
Yeah, that's very well put. I am concerned as a not only a, a citizen of the US, and I
Yeah.
have 5 kids in my family. What I'm
Hmm.
concerned is gonna happen is there's gonna be a short period of time, and I don't know what that time is, but a few years where brands are iterating and trying to build out to match these laws, because you'll have to default to the lowest common denominator, right? So whatever
Hmm.
is the most complex, hardest EPR law, let's say, I don't know, Vermont comes out with it, and
Hmm.
you can't companies are not going, especially food companies and they're not going to have just like Vermont packaging and then the rest of it, right? It's going to be the
Yeah.
whole thing. What I suspect is going to happen, and I hope doesn't, but I suspect will happen, is that those costs are just going to be passed down to the consumers while they're figuring it out. So, we'll just pay more for for
Yeah.
for the items, whatever it is that's being taxed from an EPR standpoint. So let's
Right.
say they determine that, for example, polypropylene. They say polypropylene is bad, and you have to pay a lot more money. It's like, well, do you know how hard it is to switch from
Yeah, yeah,
polypropylene
right, right, right.
to—
And then do you know the benefits of each of the materials?
Correct.
And so, by putting in those regulations and not really, having direct dialogue with the brand owners, the food companies, medical, whatever industry, is a disservice, because that's muddying the water. It's making it a mess. And we need to, yesterday I was on with the US Plastics Pact, doing a fantastic job on really trying to understand how we can collect PCR and how we can close the loop on PCR. You look at some other countries, Belgium, etc., where they've really got some great systems. America is a huge country with, lots of infrastructure and different, road requirements and regulations for packaging in different states. And so we need to be able to come to common ground where that is all streamlined. Streamline, simplify, and educate.
Mhm. I love it. Yeah, and for the record, I'm not on the I think you're saying the same thing. I'm not anti-EPR at all. I think there
No.
has to be some level
Yes.
of oversight and compliance, right? It's
Yes.
just reach out to, folks like yourself and the Association of Plastics Recyclers and the US Plastics Bank, like
Yes.
get all of the stakeholders there. There was an article that's I forget which state had to pause their EPR because nobody had talked to the recyclers to find out if they could actually do
You're
the things
right.
that had written into the law. It was like,
Yeah.
you wrote a
Yeah.
law without talking to the people who have to execute on it? Like, come on.
Right. You want a
It
car
was
with a steering wheel? Are you kidding?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well,
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more.
so let's tie this up here, and I want to hear a little bit about about the podcast and
Sure.
so what are the things that the three of you talk about? Or is it just the three of you, or bringing on guests? Like, tell me a little bit about it. How do people find it? And then finally, we'll end with how do people get in touch with you?
Right. So you can find our podcast, Cat Pack, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. You can go onto our website at icpg.co. You can grab it from there. We're crazy about packaging, so we talk about a lot of different things in packaging. We haven't had any guests yet, but we that's on the docket. We address everything from problematic materials to focusing on sustainability. We did a one show on our XPP material, which was pretty exciting, and how that all developed. We just continue to try and elevate and educate, our audience or listeners on the benefits of plastics. For instance, one of our podcasts coming up is on food waste and waste. And that is so critical. If you can extend a day or a week's shelf life for a food processor, that's huge, because that then reduces the amount of waste. And so we're talking about current issues and regulations, and it's and mostly focused on sort of rigid thermoforming and form-fill seal packaging.
Got it. Okay. Well, I'll make sure to have links to your podcast
That'd be great.
down to the
Thanks.
show notes for sure. I will give you the advice that I gave to when I talked to Corey Connors and Avelio Matos, when I was talking to them about starting their podcast, I said this, and I'll say the same thing to you, right? It's fun and it's energizing, and I don't want to say it's easy to start a podcast, but you can there's a lot of free available things to start a podcast.
Yeah.
It becomes difficult to sustain a podcast. So I'm rooting for you. I want you. We need more content. We need more good people out there, sharing their perspectives in this packaging industry. And so I want you all to be sitting here. This is probably because we record earlier and then we release them. This by the time this one comes out, I think I'll be over 200 episodes. So
fantastic.
There's a lot of passion and grit and grind.
There is.
It. But I will tell you, it's worth it. So I'm excited for y'all sorry, you're in the South. I'm excited for y'all to continue the process.
It's very British
of creating this podcast.
Yeah, actually, Corey was the first podcast I ever did.
Oh, awesome!
And really just love his work and what he's doing. He's terrific. Yeah. It's always a pleasure to see him.
Love Corey, and now I get to call you a friend. I can.
There we go.
Me and Johnny Cage are tight, so don't mess with me.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's gonna be one of those things. So, how do people get in touch with you then specifically? So we know how they can listen to podcasts. How do they get in touch with you?
I can be reached. Again, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. Or you can just go onto our website, or just email me at jcage@impactgroup.co. Love to chat, and like you, Adam, I'm very passionate about engaging in the packaging field and the industry, and driving towards more sustainability. It's what I wake up and love to do every day. And we will leave it at that. Jonathan Cage, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. My pleasure, Adam. I appreciate it. I hope I was the first of many. This has been fun. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Hey.
Hey, congrats. You made it to the end of the podcast. If you're looking for more great podcast material in the packaging industry, please check out Sustainable Packaging with Corey Connors and the newly redesigned Package Unboxed with Avelio Matos. Go find them wherever you listened to this podcast. Thanks, everybody.